All right, everybody, welcome back. It's a cherry picking week 23 of the fantasy hockey season. I'm now in the semifinals of my 2 fantasy hockey leagues, so we're really coming down to the wire here. So I have 4 players to pick up this week. 2 guys that play more of just a volume based pick, and then we have these other guys also playing really well for some of these teams. But I'll be honest, the teams that we're going to be looking at don't have the greatest pedigrees right now. Definitely further down in the standings, but you got to find some value in the weeds here. And some of these teams, unfortunately, are just the Chicagos and the Arizonas of the world right now. But before we get into the video, I need to talk to you guys about PROPS.CASH, one of the better tools, I guess you could say, to use for fantasy hockey and prop betting. So many in-depth metrics, stats that are displayed in a way that's really easy to consume. It's perfect for people that are either just starting fantasy hockey or just learning how to sports bet as well. If this does interest you at all, might as well give it a go. Sign up with promo code OwnersBox. You can get 25% off your first month. So a nice amount of savings there for that first month. I can almost guarantee if you like sports, you like stats, this is definitely going to be the tool for you. All right, so the first guy we're going to be looking to pick up this week, Juuso Valimaki on the Arizona Coyotes. I talked about it in the intro, how we're going to be looking at players on these kind of worst teams, but honestly, Arizona, I don't even know if they even fit that mold. They've rattled off a couple wins here. I was talking about Barrett Hayton last week as well. Him and Clayton Keller have been playing very, very well, but big time opportunity here for Valimaki because there's legitimately no one left who can play defense in Arizona. It's literally just Juuso Valimaki, less than 20% rostered too. He's been on my must-add before, I want to say about a month ago when Gossespierre and Chychrun were getting traded. It's even better too because he has 4 games this week starting on Tuesday. However, they do play the Avs on a back-to-back on the weekend, so maybe a little bit of a tougher matchup there, but still Valimaki, in terms of his usage rate, you need to put him in your lineup. He has 7 points in his last 4 games. The Yotes just continue to score. It doesn't seem like it's going to stop. It's wild. You know, we've seen a lot of adversity from this group kind of near the end of the season here. They've won 4 in a row, beating Minnesota and Calgary, scoring 5 and 4 in those games. 2 teams that are competing for playoff spots. So obviously losses they can't afford, and Arizona is just making their lives much more difficult. Seems like this team's really enjoying the test as the season comes down here, as I did mention. And like I said, Hayton and Keller have been terrific this season. You can't grab them anymore, but you might as well play them with a guy who's on the ice behind them all the time. Valimaki's playing in all sorts of situations, playing on that first power play with these 2 guys, and it's been killer recently. He's playing on the first D pair. His partner kind of switches up, but really can't trust anyone other than him. You know, they have Patrick Nemeth, JJ Moser. I wouldn't really turn my attention to them. Juuso Valimaki, priority ad this week, especially if you need a defenseman. But if not, I think he's a great plug and play for if you need a fill-in for any time this week. All right, so another guy we're going to be looking at this week is actually on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Shit can really change when you get put on a line with someone like Austin Matthews, and that's why we're picking up Calle Jarnkrok this week. Austin Matthews is a phenomenal hockey player. For whatever reason, people see him as a super one-dimensional elite scorer, but he does a lot more than that. He's a great two-way center. He creates offense for his line mates as well. We're seeing him make a line with Alexander Kerfoot and Jarnkrok look really, really good right now. But Jarnkrok specifically, 5 points in his last 4 games played, playing north of 15 minutes a game, almost up to 16, 17 minutes over the last week. His shot volume, like his ice time, is increasing as well. He's not just scoring on a low percentage of shots. You know, he had 4 and 3 in games against LA and Anaheim, where he scored at least once in both of those games. The best part about Jarnkrok as well, all of his recent success is coming in 5-on-5 situations. So you love that as a fantasy hockey owner. If you're looking at their last 5 games, only Marner has more 5-on-5 points. Jarnkrok, I think, has 6. Marner has 7. He also plays in every situation possible right now, playing on the second power play with a couple of guys hurt on this offense for the Leafs, and then also on PK1. So obviously Sheldon Keefe really trusts this guy to do a lot, and playing with Austin Matthews is that touch notch that we need to really make him a person that you'd have solidified on your roster for this entire week. Some favorable matchups for the Leafs this week too. So Jarnkrok, less than 10% rostered, definitely someone I'm looking at. All right, another good guy to look at this week, Travis Hamonic on the Ottawa Senators. Ottawa plays a very fluid style of play with their defensive pairs. You know, it's nothing really set in stone, I would say. And I like that for Hamonic because with Chychrun moving in, it's kind of forced him to play this kind of style. And also Shabbat being hurt, you know, they can't rely on him for as many minutes as they were at the beginning of the season. But Chychrun, much more offensive than him, and will add a certain flair to Hamonic's game that isn't necessarily always there. He now does play, or always has played, on the PK with Jake Sanderson. One thing that Hamonic does on the PK, and just pretty much all the time, is block shots. He has 130 of them on the year, consistently blocking 2 to 3 right now per game. I would say over the last week and a half, his last 3-game stretch. Ottawa's just scoring so much right now as well. Even though they are losing a lot of games in an unfortunate situation, it kind of seemed like they were going to kind of battle for that last wildcard spot, but kind of seeing a little bit out of the distance at this point. They've scored 4, 4, and 3 their last 3 games, and everyone's chipping in too. Travis Hamonic included in that with a goal and 4 points his last 3 games. And yeah, over that span, I mentioned he blocked shots. He has 13 block shots in his last 3 games. So he's playing really well right now. Ottawa, Hamonic's a great ad this week for Ottawa. Does have a tough schedule, but a busy one as well, playing with 4 games starting on Monday. Okay, I mentioned at the beginning of the video, when the fantasy hockey playoffs come around, you have to find value in the weeds. And sometimes those weeds are in Chicago, because we're picking up Taylor Raddysh this week. Former second-round pick, was a part of that Brandon Hagel trade that moved him over to Tampa. But since Chicago has sold everyone, he's really the only forward I think you can trust moving forward here. He has 4 goals the last 4 games. He did have a hat trick against Boston, so maybe that boosts his numbers a little bit here. But I would also say it's a good thing because he doesn't shy away or necessarily falter when it comes to a tough competition. And let me tell you, Boston's roster is much better than Chicago's right now, and that's clear to about anybody who's watching hockey. He plays on that second line that features Tyler Johnson and Jason Dickinson, easily the more superior to their first line right now, which includes Lucas Reichel, Athanasiou, and Kurashev. So a little bit of a younger line. Jason Dickinson and Tyler Johnson bring a little bit more of a veteran, grittier presence that might help Raddysh solidify as the number 1 scorer on that team. He plays like 17 minutes a game right now, Taylor Raddysh, and over his last 5 games played, here's how he stacks up against the rest of his team. The numbers: first in goals with 4, second in expected goals 4, only behind his line mate Tyler Johnson, who's playing pretty well whenever he's healthy this season. He's 3rd in high danger chances, 3rd in shots on goal, 3rd in ice time amongst forwards, and then 1st amongst wingers. So Raddysh really is a no-brainer ad, and what makes it even better this week, he plays 4 games, including Monday, where he goes to play Colorado. So a little bit tougher. We don't really need to worry about that one as well. I don't think he's a priority in that sense. But his next games for the rest of the week: Washington, who's been allowing a ton of shots with absolutely no defensive depth anymore; Minnesota, who has had some really good goaltending this year and solid defensive play; and then Vancouver, though, who also we know has been allowing a lot of offensive opportunities, especially to some of these wingers. I think Taylor Raddysh is a great ad this week. Less than 5% rostered. As I mentioned, sometimes you're going to have to go the ugly route, but a guy that has a lot of volume and a decent amount of production is a good guy to add as you try to win your fantasy hockey season. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to check out that link to PROPS.CASH if you haven't already. Sign up code is OwnersBox to get 25% off your first week. Let me know what you think of the must-adds this week as well, and good luck in your semifinals for fantasy hockey playoffs.